I am really excited to bring to the stage Matt Patsky. Well, you see, I've gotten to know Matt. He's just an incredible guy. He's an iconic leader in the investing space, in the ESG space, impact. We can call it a number of different things, and I might pick his brain a little bit on that. Matt is the head of Trillium Asset Management based out of Boston. And as I mentioned, one of the foremost leaders in this space. So Matt, welcome to the event. I'm really, really glad to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Tobin. Happy to be here, and thank you to everyone at Angel MD.
Well, as I told Matt just a bit ago, he's got probably the best view in the house for this event there in Boston. I'm jealous. Matt, I want to start off just when we've got a short amount of time. Matt and I, every time we get a chance to chat, he's got so many great stories and history. We could go for hours, but we've got just a short time frame today. So Matt, you have had the moniker of the healthy guru of Wall Street. Can you just start off by sharing how did you get that nickname? Where did that come from?
Yeah, when I was a consumer analyst actually way back at Lehman Brothers, I started looking at environmental and social impact in the investment space, and started to incorporate that into the research I was doing on consumer brands, and it led me to a whole bunch of brands that were actually catering to healthier lifestyle trends, including Whole Foods Market and a whole series of players in the natural product space. And the moniker of Healthy Living Guru was something that was given to me by, I think, one of the investment bankers, and it stuck. And then we started doing a annual conference, which we called the Healthy Living Conference, that started in the mid '90s, and so it was kind of cemented there. And it certainly did me well in my career.
That's a good moniker. Matt, for those who are not familiar, maybe you can just tell a little bit about Trillium and maybe just a little bit of the brief history, because it really is in many ways the history of ESG investing.
Yep, sure. Yeah. Trillium was started by a pioneer in the field, Joan Bavaria, back in 1982. And the objective was she had worked in a trust department of a bank and was demonstrating that you could incorporate your values into the investment process without sacrificing return. And so she launched the firm with the objective of providing for the financial needs of our clients while leveraging their capital for positive social and environmental impact in alignment with their values. And what that really meant was we're an active owner and we're pressing the companies that we do invest in for improved environmental and social outcomes. And that's true across the board in everything we invest in. And so we're now over 5 billion in AUM and over 6 billion in assets under advisement, and the firm has seen tremendous growth as we've seen, I think, recognition that the environmental, social, and governance information actually is material to the performance of companies and material in terms of managing risk and portfolios. And so there's the beginning of I think a real recognition from the mainstream that they need to incorporate ESG.
Well, it's funny you mentioned it is getting more recognition from the mainstream, but that wasn't always the case, obviously. And you've told me some pretty funny stories about earlier in your career. You saw trends and you saw opportunities, and I love the fact that you just mentioned it wasn't just about social influence; it was social influence and doing well. That those two things were not antithetical; in fact, they were complementary. But maybe just go back and share a little bit of that early insight that wasn't as well received at the time.
Yeah, the initial look at how this was playing out in terms of the building of sustainable franchises in the consumer space was while I was at Lehman, and the one place I would stop first when I would go to visit a company was the HR department, and you'd get the same comment every time. No one in the investment space ever asks to speak to HR. And I'd say, no, I need an hour with them at least. So, and I'd start doing that deep dive of how they handle onboarding, what their compensation systems were, how they were doing in terms of turnover. Retention's obviously critical. Talent recruitment and retention is a critical part of the success of any business. But I had, though, taken all of that, gone back and decided I was going to I was going to change Lehman Brothers, and I did a pitch to the associate director of research saying, I think I have a way to build the most incredible franchise that would translate into being the investment bank for socially responsible businesses. We should talk about environmental social impact across all sectors. And he leaned in and he said, Matt, it's really nice that you care about these issues. If you don't stop, it'll destroy your career. And so I made the decision then that I needed to leave Lehman Brothers. And obviously, I left long before they had their issues, but I left them in 1993. But it was it was an interesting period of time, and certainly as I say to people, I wasn't wrong. I was just really early.
That's that's the story for a lot of startups, right? I mean, timing is critical, and history has proved you right. The market shifted, and as you indicated, this is becoming much more acceptable. Trillium's own performance and growth is a testament to that. You guys are growing like a weed worldwide. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, in the current environment, what are some of the things that you see going well with respect to ESG, and then what are some of the areas that maybe you're not quite as happy about or excited about that you would change, if you will?
The mainstreaming is really exciting because it's an acknowledgement of its materiality, and we're certainly seeing that both from investors and, of course, from the regulators. And the regulators are now starting to get into whether or not this should be regulated and how in across the globe. And of course, the most aggressive is what we're seeing out of the European Union. But I would say what's disheartening is how many players have decided that because it's a hot market, that they should slap ESG on the label and are putting out product that is not true to label. And so we're seeing, it's referred to as greenwashing, but we're seeing an awful lot of it where there's a lot of activity of mainstream organizations taking product, slapping ESG on that, and putting it out to the marketplace. And unfortunately, not authentic and not done in a real way. Isn't really getting the benefits that are inherently there, because we do know that companies with stronger environmental, social, and governance profiles actually correlate with stronger management teams and correlate with better performance over time. So it's there. The evidence has been there for 40 years.
So I know in our discussions, Trillium, you take a very conservative approach, first of all, to performance and costs and fees. You're very conscious about those things. Can you talk a little bit about, for those in the audience that might be part of family offices or investment groups, how can they participate in Trillium's performance? And then maybe the same question specific to individuals. Are there opportunities for individuals to participate in Trillium's business?
Yeah. With our success has come a need for us with our direct business to raise our minimums. And so we now are at, while it might not seem insurmountable for some on this call, it's certainly insurmountable for the average American, is that our minimums now are 5 million to work with us directly. That said, we went around, we really took a hard look at how we were how we could make our services available to a broader range of people. And back in 2011, we began a campaign to work with the broker-dealer channel to get on platform to allow people to have access to Trillium strategies at much lower minimums. And so we are on, almost every broker-dealer platform you could imagine, from Merrill Lynch to Morgan Stanley to UBS to Raymond James and on and on. We're on most platforms, and we're on Envestnet. A matter of fact, I think now the number I think is almost 200,000 financial consultants in the United States have access to Trillium strategies. So that was successful in getting the minimums down in the range of 50,000 to 100,000. But we also launched in both mutual funds ourselves and with partners, so that there's an available way of investing in Trillium strategies through mutual funds. And so literally, we've gotten to the point where we can reach people who are only able to put $1,000 into the market.
That's very cool. Want to just bring it to a specific in a few minutes left. You and I were introduced by Will Walker, as I mentioned, and you got interested in what Hall Venture Partners and behind the scenes Hall Labs was doing. And Will's going to be talking a little bit later as part of a panel and then hosting a lounge at the end of the day where he can share more. But would you mind just giving some insights into what you saw around what they were doing? Because it is very interesting in terms of there's a big impact story behind Hall Labs, and Hall Venture Partners is also taking advantage of opportunity zones and so forth. But just share what interested you.
Right. I mean, certainly the opportunity zone structure of it was helpful in terms of people who are looking at tax efficiency with rollover of capital gains. But what really intrigued me was the impact nature, and that was they were addressing a number of real trends in terms of electrification of the transportation fleet, the emergence of smart homes, and the need for more, I would say, smart devices in the home, particularly around healthcare. And of course, one of the attractive names that really got my attention was a company called Medic, and the need, particularly as our population is aging, to come up with better techniques for diagnostics with an aging population. And it was, I think, just sort of addressing a need that's there that particularly is prevalent in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, with a population that's less mobile.
Yeah, it's an incredible company. We'll provide a link for anybody that wants to see that smart toilet. I think it's medic.live, but really interesting company. Matt, is there anything that you would like to share just in thinking about, the year ahead for Trillium, or things that you're working on that you're excited about that would be worth kind of wrapping up the conversation with?
Yeah, I would just say this, because it's where I think the resistance comes, is most people have an inherent belief system that they come to when they look at investments of you can't look at incorporating your values into the investment process without sacrificing return. I hear it every day. It isn't true. There is the opportunity to think about your values and incorporate it into your investment portfolio. And what we've certainly witnessed, and over the last 40 years, is it would appear to be able to increase your returns, and there is no sacrifice. That is a false belief that I think we need to overcome, across the board, and recognize that there is the ability in incorporating your values to actually reduce risk in your portfolio and enhance returns.
We're going to put some information in the event notes to include links to Trillium for those of you who would be interested in learning more. Matt, it's great to have you. I really appreciate you taking time today. And if I understand correctly, you're going to join Will later in the lounge. So if anybody's got questions and would like to interact, it's a great opportunity to chat with one of the leading investors in the world in this space. So really appreciate it, Matt.
Thank you so much. I'll be in the lounge at 6 p.m. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Really appreciate it. Mike, I'm going to turn the floor back over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tobin. And thank you, Matt. That was fantastic. And I have to say, it really points out one of the reasons why we push forward with this Impact Action Conference.